I went to the hospital alone. How could a good husband, a good dad? When I was paled back to my mother's house, my mother shocked my mother. As soon as I opened my mouth, I couldn't hold back choking. Just when I was about to tell my grievances, I heard my mother speak again. Chocho, Lusun's company is about to go public. You have worked hard for so many years to cultivate the fruits of your hard work. Do you really have the heart to give them to others? I was stunned. My mother then said, we also know about his relationship with Xia Xia, but that is all in the past. For a man, what he doesn't get is fragrant even if it is shit. It won't take long for him to figure it out. The person he loves most is you. I looked at them for a long time before I said, so even if I am very sad and upset, you still think I shouldn't get a divorce, right? Dad looked at me like a child who didn't understand anything and sighed. Chocho, listen to what Dad said. No matter how reluctant a man is to give up his first love, he will realize the importance of family over time. Xiaolu is so good. If you divorce, do you think you can find someone with the same conditions? Don't be angry for the moment. Every word was a pros and cons analysis, but there was no heartache for his daughter. Mom was still nagging, she has no vision. She can't grasp the potential. You finally won Xia Xia in marriage. Mom and Dad finally got proud. Do you want to lose to her again? From childhood to adulthood, I have always been the control group of Yi Xia. Mom and Dad secretly competed with each other, but in order to please my uncle who does business in Beijing, they always belittled me. If Qiu Qiu can compare with Xia Xia, we will be thankful. If Xia Xia was my daughter, we would never have Qiu Qiu. Sometimes, people are not afraid of being suppressed, but that this suppression comes from your closest family. Over time, inferiority complex grows wildly like weeds in the corner, entangled and suffocated me. I covered my belly and looked at them quietly. To you, my existence is just a tool to compare with Yi Xia? Dad glared, how do you talk to your parents? Aren't we doing this for your own good? I closed my eyes and suppressed the disappointment that had been accumulated in my heart for a long time. I didn't hate Lucen so much at first. But that person happened to be Yi Xia. He pretended to firmly choose me and tore the illusion apart, hurting me bloody. That day, I really thought Lucen went to the company for a meeting. It was Yi Xia who added me on WeChat and took the initiative to tell me that she had returned to China and Lucen was accompanying her. Before I really made up my mind, I didn't want others to inquire and discuss, because of certain actions. So the background of my circle of friends at that time was still my wedding photo with Lucen. Yi Xia gave me a thumbs up and said, Chocho, although you have always liked wearing your sister's old clothes, why do you wear wedding dresses that your sister doesn't want? When this sentence came, I was looking at the pregnancy test report and wondering whether to wait for Lucen to come back from overtime to tell him. The birth of this little life made me hesitate for a moment. Should I give Lucen another chance for him? Even if he betrayed me deeply in private, at least on the surface, he still looked like a good husband who loved me like his life. I still remember one evening, Lucen and I were walking in the community. Unexpectedly, the young couple upstairs had a quarrel and a flower pot was pushed down from the balcony. I was still in a daze, and Lucen protected me in his arms, without thinking. As a result, his shoulder was broken and he had to rest for several months before he recovered. The doctor said, fortunately, it was just the shoulder. If it was a little more off, it might have hit his head. Lucen looked more scared than me. He hugged me tightly. Wife, it's a good thing you weren't hurt. The girl in the bed next to me looked envious. You are so lucky. Your husband is so handsome and loves you so much. Lucen was proud beside me. That's because no one loves Shen Shuqiu more than me. He said it with such certainty. But at that time, he had already slept with Yi Xia. I couldn't tell how much of Lucen's love for me was real and how much was fake. At least now, I don't want to distinguish it anymore. I don't want to argue with my parents anymore. I'm going to tell them that I'm pregnant and miscarried. Lucen and I will never be together. The doorbell rang suddenly. Lucen stood outside the door, holding a bunch of bright red roses in his arms. Wife, don't be angry. Come home with me, okay? Lucen lowered his head and stared at me. Chocho. My friend saw you go to the obstetrics and gynecology department. You are pregnant? Why didn't you tell me right away? I shook my head. I thought about it. I took out the pregnancy test form and handed it to him. I was going to tell you, but then I felt it was unnecessary. Lu Sun's face froze for a moment, but the next second, he couldn't stop smiling at the corner of his lips. He stared at the pregnancy test form over and over again. Qiu, we are going to have a child. I am so happy. He looked up. Perhaps he saw my cold eyes. He paused. I have settled Xixia. Everything that happened before was my fault. But except for the matter with her, I have never lied to you. I really love you. I really want to spend my whole life with you. Qiu. This child is given to us by God. Isn't it? I know you are angry now, but for the sake of the child, can you give me another chance? Lu Sun explained a lot. He said that at first. They did meet by chance abroad. Yi Jixia was alone and had no one to take care of her. After a few times, they got in touch again. For so many years, Yi Jixia's parents have placed high hopes on her and have extremely high expectations. She is a perfect goddess in the eyes of outsiders. But she suffered from depression after going abroad. I don't think that accompanying her for the interview is more important than our wedding anniversary. It's just that her mental condition has been very bad recently. She has been locking herself at home. It's hard for her to start trying a new job and get her life back on track. Qiu, you are so kind, you can understand me, right? Lu Sun looked sincere. I admit that I did something wrong. When I started pursuing you, I really wanted to find the shadow of Jixia in you, including that wedding dress. I was so wrong, Qiu, I'm sorry. But after marrying you, I found that you are such a good girl. I have fallen in love with you. I really didn't plan to have anything with Jixia. All the words I said on WeChat later, I just didn't want to stimulate her emotions. Lu Sun said a lot, and I responded with silence. Perhaps seeing that I didn't get angry and argue with him, Lu Sun thought I was touched. His pupils were stained with smiles. Qiu, I won't see Jixia again. When the child is born, our family of 3 will be fine. I suddenly said, you slept with her, did you not want to irritate her? Lu Sun was choked for a moment, but he still looked at my face and said slowly, that night, she said she couldn't let me go after the breakup and wanted to wear a wedding dress to fulfill a dream. I didn't want to have sex with her. I just drank a little at the time. I took the pregnancy test report from his hand and tore it to pieces in front of him. I said, Lu Sun, I lied to you too. In fact, there is no child anymore. Lu Sun's expression was blank for a second. I took Lu Sun's hand and put it on my belly. I said word by word, I aborted the child. I won't let him have a father who cheated on his wife. Lu Sun, your child was killed by you. Qiu, how could you abort the child without permission? How could you be so cruel? You really pissed us off. When they heard Lu Sun admit to cheating, they didn't blame Lu Sun. Instead, when they heard that I aborted the child, my mother wiped her tears and blamed me, as if I had done something terribly wrong. Lu Sun stared at the white fragments scattered on the ground and was silent for a long time. The veins on his forehead bulged, as if he was enduring great pain. I thought he would be angry like my parents and question me. But his eyes were bloodshot, his voice was hoarse like a rusty gear, and he squeezed out word by word, it's okay, Qiu, it's all my fault, as long as you can forgive me, we will have children. I laughed, do you deserve it? Shen Qiu. Lu Sun gritted his teeth. After so many years of marriage, can't you really feel my love for you? Are you really going to sentence me to death just because I was confused for a moment? Just confused for a moment? Lu Sun, you have so many opportunities to stop, but don't you still let yourself relive the old dream? I looked at the man I have loved for many years in front of me, and saw his face full of pain and anger, but I didn't feel anything in my heart. Lu Sun, you are just used to loving me, deceiving me, and betraying me at the same time. And he admitted, explained, and confessed now, just because I found out. I whispered, I don't want more love like this. I looked at him expressionlessly, isn't it the critical period for your company to go public now? If the scandal is exposed now, what do you think your competitors will do to you? Do you think those shareholders will eat you alive? 3 days later, Lu Sun finally weighed the pros and cons. When signing the divorce agreement, I said, Suchio, I am not someone who will be threatened. He looked a little haggard and smiled bitterly. I am willing to sign not because I am afraid that you will take action against the company. I just didn't expect, Chio, that you actually hate me to this extent. His hand paused as he signed, and the pen stopped abruptly, just like the marriage between him and me. Suchio, I would rather you quarrel with me and cry and question me like that day than you are so calm now and use the things I care about most to force me to agree to divorce. You don't love me anymore, right? I said, you should have been prepared for this result when you chose to cheat and be ambiguous with Yi Jixia. His eyes slowly turned red. I thought I still had a chance. I didn't expect you to be so decisive. I gave you a chance. I interrupted him. Lu Sun, I was entangled for at least 3 months after I found out that you cheated. Especially after I found out that I was pregnant, I gave you a chance on our wedding anniversary. Before I personally went to find out about his affair with Yi Jixia, I sent a message to Lu Sun. I said, Lu Sun, are you hiding something from me? If you tell me yourself, I will forgive you. That was the last chance I gave Lu Sun for the sake of the child. But he was relaxed and even teased me. Yes, I am preparing a surprise for my dear wife. I can't tell you now. It was my trust and love for Lu Sun that made him think I was a fool. Lu Sun said anxiously, no, Chio, I really prepared a surprise for you that day. I was going to come back to accompany you after I dealt with Jixia's affairs. I don't need it. I lowered my eyes. When I was a child, my parents would say to please my uncle that they would give Xia to them as their daughter and would not want me. When you grow up, you will also forget my joys, sorrows, anger, and happiness for Yi Jixia. Just like autumn always comes after summer. It seems that I will always be the second in line with you. Lu Sun wanted to pull my hand, but I dodged him. I picked up the divorce agreement and strode out the door.